thanks for giving me this interview. This is
Yeah, no problem, yeah.
yeah. So, what's your name and where you're from?
Well, my name's Malachy Cullen. I'm originally from Portadown, but I've been living in Lurgan this 40 odd years.
What was it like growing up in Portadown?
Well, it was a real sectarian town, you know what I mean? There was very few tags. They all had their own little areas, but it was a predominantly unionist town, like, so
So,
that's my opinion of it.
like, what's the name of it?
Well, there was a certain amount of sectarian strife.
Yeah, because they have that march, the Dumcree, I think it's called.
Yeah, well,
Drumcree.
Yeah.
yeah, well, they did march. They marched. I remember them marching down through a nationalist area, like, with the help of in later years, the soldiers, but the police would always have marched them down it, you know, down the, what they called the tunnel, like, you know, so they were all nationalists down there, like, so they would have marched through there in a triumphant sort of a fashion, like, so.
What was the Special Powers Act?
Well, the Special Powers Act meant that the police or peace specials or in later years the UDR could do whatever they wanted, basically, and you had no rights. If you were arrested under the Special Powers Act, they could keep you sort of indefinitely. As far as we were concerned, we had no rights anyhow, you know, so.
So, like, at the time, there's this thing that they're trying to implement called, like, ulsterization and, like, normalization, and so...
That comes
Later?
later.
Later.
That comes in. That's what the blanket protest is all about.
Right.
And then leading to the hunger strike, the 10 died.
So, but in 1972, weren't they just starting to do that because they're trying to do the criminalization? They're trying to, like, isn't that why the hunger strike was...
The first hunger strike was in 1972, along with Billy McKee, and I think there was about 35 on the hunger strike. But the reason we went on hunger strike that time was for political status, because we had to wear prison uniform and do prison work, and we objected to that. So that's why the hunger strike came about. But we had a lot of support outside for that hunger strike now, you know, there was rallies and ads in the paper and, you know, all sorts of things, like, you know, we did have a lot of support for that now, you know. And we did achieve our goals, so we didn't have to do prison work. All right, we looked after our own cell and our own wing and stuff like that, but we didn't, before that there was a tailor's shop, you know, where they made prison uniforms, and there was some places where they made boots and shoes, you know, for prisoners and stuff like that. Well, we had to do all that before political status, but once we got the political status, that was our demands, you know, no prison. One of the main ones, like, was no prison work and to wear our own clothes, so everything else sort of fell in after that, like.
How long did the hunger strike last, Malachy?
As far as I remember, there was 5 of us went on every week.
Right.
The first 5, so it would have been, it must have been 7 weeks. Oh no, it would have 36, 37 days.
Right.
I think that would have been for the first 5 now. Now I was on the second wave of hunger strikers. So I would have done 7 days less than that, so that would have been 29 or 30 days I done, you know.
So is
And
Billy
then,
McKee, is he
Billy
on the
McKee
first?
was on the first one,
Right,
yeah.
yeah.
Billy led the thing, yeah. He was on the first one, yeah. I was on the second one, and so on and so forth, you know,
yeah.
till I suppose the last ones were only on it maybe 7 days or something, you know.
Is Prentice McGard in the wing at this time?
Prentice sort of took over from Billy McKee
Right.
as
He's
OC.
not on the hunger strike.
No, he's not on the
He
hunger
takes
strike,
over
no.
the role of
Yeah.
Billy McKee once he goes on.
Once Billy went on, he handed over the reins to
Yeah,
Prentice, yeah.
yeah,
Who I have to say was very good now, you know.
yeah,
He
yeah,
was, he was very good at what he'd done now, you know.
yeah,
It was a bit of a struggle, but we got there in the end, you know.
yeah.
I think anyone that says a hunger strike's easy is either nuts or very foolish, some of the two, you know. But it wasn't easy, like, but there was only one person, and I wouldn't want to name him, like, but there was only one person there that 30, and I'm assuming 35 now, you know, but I think
5 a week.
or 30 or 35 that went on. There was only one person that actually broke, you know.
Right.
You know, which I thought was a good record too, you know, like, you know. Everybody had their heart in it now, you know, and everyone volunteered. You know, this carry on that people were ordered onto hunger strikes and stuff like that was a fallacy, you know. And everybody in the wings then tried to help anyone that was on hunger strike, you know, anything they could do for them.
Moral support.
It was all, aye.
Yeah,
And even to reading books or getting books or maybe playing snooker, you know, as long as you were able to, you know, that's kind of thing.
Were the hunger strikers kept in the wing the
They were,
entire time?
There was one hunger striker now, am I supposed to mention his name, like, am I?
Not if you don't want to.
Well, Bobby Campbell, you called him, like.
Right, okay, from the New Lodge, he's from my district.
Aye, well, Bobby took, I don't know what happened to him now, but he lost an awful weight in in a very short time, and he was taken out to the Mater Hospital. They thought his heart was going to stop or something. You know, it was a real sudden thing because he wasn't one of the first or anywhere near the first on it, I don't think, you know. But anyhow, he ended up in the Mater Hospital, and somebody came into the Mater Hospital and took him out, you know. I mean, he escaped.
Oh, yes, I remember that now, yeah.
You know, so
yeah,
I remember that now. That was the only one, in my recollection, and this is 49 or 50 years, whatever years later, over 50 years actually, if you think it's 72.
yeah, yeah.
You know, so in my recollection, he was the only one that really went downhill, you know, so fast.
Yeah.
You know, like everybody else, like I lost weight. Everybody, obviously anybody on hunger strike, everybody on hunger strike lost weight, but Bobby lost it dramatically, you know. And I think they were afraid of his heart freezing or, you know, something. I think he had lost 2 stone in a week or something. You know, it was astronomical, the weight that he lost. You know,
Too much too quick.
Well, I think I only lost 2 stone or something in around that in a month.
Right.
If you understand, and he lost that amount in a week. So if you work it out that way. But I think some of the boys out of our down or somewhere went in and took him out of the hospital, so he survived it. And funny enough, I haven't seen him since. You know, but he survived it all right. Like, but he would have died. You know, he definitely would. Like he couldn't. There's nobody could sustain that weight loss in such a short time. He would have been dead in I don't know, a day or two. I'd say. You know, myself like.
And could your comrades come to your cell and visit you and see how you're getting on and stuff like that?
Yeah, they could all right. Like the only thing was
Screws didn't object to them interacting with you.
No, the Screws didn't give us a hard time or anything like.
Right.
The only thing I think, and I'm nearly sure, they had to set a dinner in, you know, in a tray every day, you know. So, but then at the end of it, I think some of our boys would have just come in. Now, I'm not 100% sure about this, but somebody would have come in and took the dinner away, you know. But they had to offer me a dinner every day, type thing, you know.
Offer you your meals.
Well,
and the meals were all brought to the cell.
Well, I don't know. I seem to recall just the tray, you know, maybe it was a breakfast tray, maybe it was, I think it was a dinner tray now, you know. To my recollection now, people could argue with me, I might be wrong there saying that, but I know they had to offer us a meal every day, you know.
Yeah.
So they brought this round, sat it inside the door, somebody come round after that. And after a while anyhow, you know, to me personally now, you know, somebody sat in a meal in front of me didn't bother me. It did for the first week now. You know, for the first few days, you know, you seem to have a hunger, but the biggest problem was the cold, you know. You know, like after not eating for a long time, you get very cold, you know, and
Right.
and then it's difficult to keep drinking the water all the time, you know. Like the water, it's really difficult, but it's kind of your savior if you can get it down. You know, I was lucky enough I could drink away at the water, like, you know, but there was a lot of fellas that it was making them sick and stuff, you know, at the end of it, like, you know, but as I say, it was a bit of a struggle, but, you know, we made it, like, so.
What else? You got questions there about that?
It's just interesting about the water. Because you're right, you feel it's like the only thing that's like neutral that you can put in you, but if it's making you sick, it's like.
Aye, it's a kind of the taste of it, you know, like I'm drinking water now and it tastes okay, but if you're drinking that continuously for 4 or 5 weeks, and not eating anything, you know, like it gets to be a vile sort of taste, if you know what I mean. And then it's surprisingly too, like I used to read books, still do read a few books, like, but I used to read books all the time, you know, so like you read cowboy books, you know, you couldn't read, you know, now after a week or two, you couldn't read anything heavy, you know. It seemed to be, you know, like draining you, you know. So you tried to get light reading, you know, anything light reading. So like we used to get like cowboy books, you know, and it's surprising, like, you know, you're reading a cowboy book and you never think of it. Somebody gets shot at the end and they're nearly all live happily ever after, like, but the amount of times that they would be cooking beans on the fire, you understand what I mean? Now that's something you would never think of.
So
you know,
food, like,
you'd never think of that, you know,
yeah.
when you're, you know, having normal food and all that. But when you haven't eaten for about a month, you know, or 2 or 3 weeks, you know, it sticks in your head. They're eating baked beans. Just I would have loved baked beans at that point in time, you know. So things like that, you know, trivial things, like, really, you know. But trivial things kind of, you know, it's trivial now, if you understand what I mean. But at the time, it wasn't trivial, you know. That kind of way, it was a really.
Sure.
It was really a.
But can you tell us anything about how you felt, your mentality, like, no, week by week? Were you like fear? Were you resolved to the fact that you're gonna die here? So you are things like that.
Aye, well.
How did you feel?
You know,
like,
my resolve. I think the longer you go on, the more sort of determined you become. You know, to be honest, like, you know, like, it's a kind of casual at the start. Everybody was in right good, you know, good food, you know, good health and all. It was only that case with Bobby Campbell that really brought it to that, like, this is a serious thing, you know. But I don't think I ever lost the resolve, like, to get political status, if you know what I mean. But for you to say to me now, and for me to give you an honest answer, I couldn't honestly say to you I would have went on today. You understand what I mean? Like, I think I might have, but, you know, like, you never know what you'll do in them situations until you're actually in the situation, you know. You know, like, that's the way I feel about it, you know. People say to me, would you, you know, Benny someone afterwards would have said to me, you know, were you going to go on to death, you know? But I couldn't honestly answer that question, you know, because unless you're in that situation, you don't know why you will or not. Like, I could have chickened out the last week or the last couple of days, you know. I don't know if I would or not, like, you know. But you do think, like,
just
you
didn't
know.
get that far.
like I had two wee girls at the time, you know,
Aye.
the only children, like, you know, and I didn't want to die, like, you know, but sure, who does, like, you know, but you do get caught up in the situation, you get caught up in a whole lot of things, like I would probably have, everybody would have felt the same, like if I give up, I'm letting my mate in the next cell down, or,
Yeah,
you know, or stuff like that, like, you know, so that's always in your head too, like. But I don't think mentally it done me much harm, you know, like, you
Right.
know, I overcome it all right, like, you know, after, like, I can remember, like, going out to play football and stuff like that, you know, now that was a good bit down the road, like, you just couldn't go out the next day and play football, like, you
building
know.
yourself back
I
up,
actually lost my wedding ring because my fingers was that thin, the wedding ring fell off the first match I went to play after it, you know, so I never got known, by the way. That's a lie, I actually did get one.
Maybe just one more question about the hunger strike, and then we'll go up to the cages. Or have you got other stuff?
I have some other stuff that I want to get in. So, like,
Yeah.
when you first agree to the hunger strike, or when you first volunteer for the hunger strike, what are you feeling?
Well, probably apprehension, like, but, you know, I thought we had a good chance of getting it, you know.
Did you think long and hard about it, or did you think was it your decision, personal decision, over a day or two or a week or something? And like, when was it first mooted that about a hunger strike among yous? Like, there had to be a build up to it, like, so there was.
Well, there was, but I don't think it lasted very long now, you know. You know, to be honest, like.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, I can't really remember, like, but
Yeah.
obviously there must have been a list of volunteers.
Yeah.
You know what Billy was shrewd old gent too, like, you know what I mean? Like, Billy picked people on where they lived. You understand what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
he didn't want 5 people from the New Lodge on hunger strike.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So he would have picked one from Down, maybe one from Derry, one from Antrim, you know. And
So you're kind of like representing Armagh, kind
I
of.
was kind of representing Armagh, and a fellow Malachy Leonard was on in front of me. He's from Armagh City, like.
Right.
You know, but I think that's the way they were picked. You know, not who was the strongest to go on it, or, you know, I don't think that was relevant to Billy. Like, he wanted people demonstrating in Armagh about, you know,
The
Malachy
support.
Leonard, say, for instance.
Yeah.
And he wanted somebody, John Kahn was from Castlewelland, you know what I mean? That's the way Billy thought, you know. He wanted demonstrations all over the north of Ireland, you know, rather than just typically Belfast, you know what I mean? Like he was. I think he was smart that way. Now, you know, he was tuned in that way. But I don't think there was a lot of, you know, apprehension about going on hunger strike. You know, obviously there's always that chance, like, you know, that you'd have to go on to a death, like. But we're hoping, put it that way, like, that it wasn't going to happen, like. There's nobody wanted to die on it, like, you know. But I don't think anybody, you know, I don't think anybody was that particularly worried about it, you know. You know, that's my opinion, like. But, you know, you'd have to ask everybody else how they felt, you know.
Fair enough.
You know.
What are the effects of a hunger strike on you, the hunger striker? Like,
Well, as I said before, the effects was really, that I can remember, you know, in later weeks, was the cold, you know. You couldn't get heat into you, you know, from what I can remember, you know. You were cold all the time, you know, and even getting into bed and putting blankets over you, you know, you still felt cold, you know.
and what time of year was this?
That's a good question. I don't know.
I think it's like summer, so I do. I don't think it's winter or nothing. So I mean, but
I could not honestly tell you.
that's what you're saying about being a hunger striker and feeling the cold. That was the same with Bobby's hunger strike and Dark Hugh's hunger strike. I mean, hunger strikers saying about feeling the cold, like,
Ah, it was, you were cold all the time, like.
Um, so you won the right for prisoners to not wear a prison uniform in 1972.
That's right, yeah.
And then a decade later, 10 hunger strikers died for essentially the same reason.
Yeah.
And so, like, what are your feelings about that?
I really hated that the thing was going on, you know what I mean? Like, I really, I thought it was a disgrace that after, I think it was 1976, that, you know, everybody was then from being a political prisoner, which they were political prisoners, like, there's nobody can dispute that they were political prisoners, only the British government. And I think it was a disgrace, just a cut-off point. You know, you're a political prisoner of the day if you were caught, and in a week's time or in a day's time or 2 days' time or whatever, you're a criminal, like. You know, which to me, like, it was totally ridiculous, like, you know, that it actually happened, like. And for them boys were actually, I don't know the wording of their demands, but I'm sure there wasn't much difference in their demands in 81 and our demands in 72, you know, like, I would say there was no difference, like. So they were going to have to go through the same, and worse, you know, because they had Maggie Thatcher, though, and she wasn't going to give in, like, you know, it was a disgrace, like, I think, like, you know.
So, like, despite, like, the British government's, like, disregard for, like, Irish life, like, in order to, like, have a hunger strike happen, like, you endured a lot of, like, inhumane conditions and still continued the hunger strike. Like, what kept you going and sort of, like, maintaining hope?
Probably just determination, like, you know, like there's no easy way of doing a hunger strike, like, you know, so you just have to grin and bear it, sort of thing, you know, like, one day runs into the next, but you get after a while too that you can't sleep as well, you know, so really it's still one day, you know, you never, you know, after a while you don't sleep either, you know, so like it's 24 hours you're awake instead of 16 or whatever you'd be awake in a day, like, you know, so no, it's just a continuous cycle, like. There's no easy explanation for it, like, really, that I know of anyhow, like, other than the fact that you think you're going to get there in the end. Like, everybody, I presume even them fellas that died, like, were hoping that maybe a miracle would happen and something would happen that would get them off it, like, you know, without surrendering, like, you know, it's very hard to surrender too, like. Like, they've already backed them boys into a corner that they couldn't get out of, you know, like it's, like, in my opinion, it was just murder, like, you know, what they had done, like. And no call to do it, like. Sure, like, after them boys, 10 boys died, the boys got their own gear and one thing and all anyhow, you know, like their own clothes and all the rest of it. So, like, what was the 10, apart from getting a real mandate for a political party, apart from that, you know, they really gained, what did they gain, like, you know, really, like, you know.
How aware were you of the support outside of the prison for you guys, and how did this contribute to the continuing effort?
It really helped a lot, like, you know, as far as I remember now, you know. It's good for morale, like, you know, like there would have been things in the paper, you know, and all that supported, you know, even you know, odds from America and Germany, all over the world, supporting our hunger strike. Like, you know, it is a morale booster. Like, really, you know, whenever morale's pretty low.
Camera sector started. Uh, so how did these protests affect your families, and did they factor in your decision to go on hunger strike?
Well, I suppose it had a factor, all right, like, but you're sort of caught up in the situation at the time, and you know, there's nobody could say they forgot about their family, like. But my wife supported me a lot, you know what I mean, and she would always have went to demonstrations and stuff like that, you know, supposed to try and keep us alive, kind of thing.
Looking back, and this I guess would be specifically about the hunger strike, would you have done anything differently?
No, I can't say I would. No, no, I wouldn't have done anything different. No. It had to be done, like, you know, in my opinion, like, so somebody had to do it. You know, like, we're all pretty lucky, really, like, apart from that with Bobby Campbell, like, and he survived it anyway, as far as I know, like, so we're pretty much unscathed, I would say, like, you know, maybe some fellas psychologically didn't do too well, like, but the majority of people that I know survived it all right, like, you know.
I would say the cages thing would probably go at as well. You got
Yeah. So, what were the cages?
Basically, there were 10 huts that was built for, I think, soldiers or airmen or something during the war, and well, a big fence around them, and that was about the height of it. You know, they were very, very basic, like. And when we went into it, it was just an open space, like a barn, with a lot of bunk beds in it. As far as I remember, bunk beds. There must have been bunk beds in it. But no, there was nothing in it. Like a toilet at one end, and that was it. Wash hand basin, and that was all there was in it.
So what were the conditions like when you were living in the cages?
Well, it was really, really a very basic existence. You know, what could you say? Like, you were tramping over everybody for a start. There was about 30 people in each hut. There was 3 huts and a canteen, and then there was a shower block, which must have been a new addition to it, and toilets outside, you know, but they locked the doors 8 or 9 o'clock or whatever time it was, and like, there was nothing in it. There was a dartboard in it, I think. Maybe after a while we argued for this and argued for that. They ended up actually putting partitions in them then, where you had a little bit of privacy, like only wooden partitions, like, or plasterboard or something, you know. But at the start, there was nothing in them, like, it was just a barn. Well, it was just a barn floor with a lot of beds through in it, like.
So what is a screw, and what is their relationship with Republican prisoners?
Some of them done their job. Probably some of them didn't want to be doing the job. I don't know. Basically, like, you know, most screws would have live and let die sort of thing. Like, you know, if you left them alone, they would have left you alone. Like, I never had an awful lot of problems. Well, sometimes like they're searching and caused a bit of aggro and stuff like that. Like, but apart from that, like,
would they come in the search cage, the screws, or would there be military with them when they came in the search, or did they search at all?
At the end up, the military would have been with them. There was a few times that there was aggravation with with a searching bit, like, there was all right, like,
And would a screw like would he come in and lock these huts at night at a certain time,
They
or
did,
would there
I
be a
think.
group of them?
I think the lock. No, I think there was only usually a couple of screws, like, you know, and like everybody just went into the hut, unless there was a protest of some description and refused to lock up, or you know, stuff like that, like it, which did happen on occasions. But mostly, you just went into the hut at whatever time that was, 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock.
And
or
would the
whatever.
screws deal with these protests on their own, or would they call in the military? Or
In my recollection now, they were mostly were military, like, you know. The screws never really didn't seem to want to get involved in aggro. But it didn't happen very often now, you know. Like, you know, all they wanted was to contain us in them cages, and as long as they'd done that, they had done their job, I suppose,
that
you know.
sounds like most of them just want to get their day in or something.
Well, most of them, that's the impression I got now, you know. Like, I never had any much contact with screws, like, I didn't talk to them a lot, like, you know, unless I had to, like, you know, I didn't. They were never going to be my friends after all, like, you know, so.
It's a lot different on your guys' experience.
Oh, aye, yeah, aye.
You
That's,
know, fucking, they were like always in your fucking cells. So this is the one that and you asked for clarification, but try to remember what I'm asking with it. Like, did the amount of Republican prisoners in the cages give you guys some sort of sense of security when dealing with the screws? And now you said that you didn't have much interaction with them, and like, is that maybe why you didn't have much interaction with them, just because they were pretty much like outnumbered? Like,
Well, there used to be, like, I think every night, more or less, the screws would have come in and done a head count, you know. And then that was just before we locked up, like. But they would generally,
they would have actually walked into a hut. They
No,
could come into a hut.
no, they didn't, like. I don't know, maybe they could have, but no, they didn't. They stood out, they just walked around the yard the same as us. Two
Right.
screws, you know, and then, as far as I remember, they would have done a head count before we went into the huts, and that was about it, like, you know. There was normally no confrontation, like, with screws, like, you know.
Would they recognize your staff? Like, would they recognize
They did,
your position?
They did, yeah.
So if you were dealing with them, would someone, an authority in the cage, a member of the staff, deal with the screws?
The staff would have
There was a
dealt-
mechanism for dealing with things.
there would have
issues.
been, yeah.
Yeah.
The staff was the only ones really that would have had any contact with the screws,
Right,
like,
yeah.
you know, over things like you wanted a football game, or you wanted, you know,
Yeah.
go to the gym, and you know, stuff like that, or
Day-to-day
maybe
problems that arise.
maybe the food wasn't up to scratch, and you know, stuff like that. Like, we were forever protesting about something, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it wasn't a new thing to protest, like, but basically, like, this, you know, I think the screws were only looking to get their day in, like, mostly, you know, like, they weren't. They never went out of their way most of the time to look confrontation, like, you know.
So do you want to go to with the incident with the screw then that starts this?
Yeah,
So if you're saying that by and large most of the screws just want to get their day in, you know, what has happened here with this one particular screw that sort of triggers this?
Well, I suppose really the one to ask, you'd need to ask him, really, you know. But, like, I mean,
Does this happen, and what exactly is it that happened? Does this happen when you're coming from a visit, or going to a visit, or
no, coming back.
coming back from a visit? And what is he?
Well, he threatened the wife, you know, my wife, like, you know what I mean. So more or less that he knew where I lived or where she lived, and he'd be giving her a call, and and one word led to another. I said I didn't know where he lived, but I'd make sure, at that stage, I had only about 6 months to do, and I said, I'll make sure I find out where you live, and, one word led to another, and there was a bit of a shouting match. So there was no physical
So
abuse there.
was he a regular screw?
He was a regular screw, yeah.
And is he drunk or something, or why is this? This seems to be out of character
Well,
with him then.
it's out of character, but if you get 100 screws, like, I'm sure there's some of them really didn't like me, I'm sure, like, really, or whatever, didn't like Republicans, and he was obviously one of them. But it was like I had done
Do
this
you think
thing.
it came out of just bigotry?
It's just bigotry,
Yeah.
And who knows? He could have been drinking, or he was slobbering anyhow. Put it that way, like it was totally out of like I had done this 200 times, going on visits, coming back, going on visits, coming back, and never a word.
Did you ever get him as an escort on a visit before?
I
Or is this the first time you've...
I couldn't honestly say, but I did know the screw, like.
You knew he was one of the regulars?
He was one of the regulars, like, so I'm sure he had brought me back before, like.
Yeah.
Why this happened this particular time, I don't know, like, but...
There's no build-up to it, the screws aren't looking aggro, there doesn't seem to be any reason for...
No, there doesn't seem to be any reason for it, like.
It's just this one-off thing, like this.
Well, at the end of the day, I told him, like, it was my prerogative too, like, as OC, like.
Yeah.
I says, you're not welcome in this cage anymore, and don't be coming in, like.
When he brought you to the cage, you've turned around and said that to him,
I said to him,
You go on into the cage.
And I go on into the cage,
And what happens then?
Well, it's a typical thing again. He went his way, I went my way, but then, as I say, every evening, say an hour before lockup, 2 screws would have come in and walked around the cage, where we would have been probably walking around the 2 of you know what I mean? Like, But he happened to, he was back in that night, and well, we sort of know what happened after that. He got a beating anyhow, and
just him or the other screw as
no,
well?
No, the other screw run, like, I think.
The other screw run? Right, so...
He got out, or we threw him out, or I don't know, I can't really remember, like, but he got out anyhow, and then I had a sort of an inkling what was going to go down next, like, so we had a parade then and put everybody on standby, because we knew they weren't just going to let that go, like, so a short time after that, I asked the people, I asked all the volunteers, everybody in the cage, they sent word that they were looking me and Jamie's story, to go out of the cage, you know what I mean? So I asked the volunteers, did they want me and Story to go out? And tell them on, they said no, they didn't want us to go out, like. Well, I knew right away then, well, I had a fair idea that they were going to come in and try and take us out, so that's what they done, foolishly enough, like. But anyhow, we were waiting on them, I don't know, 12, 15 screws come in riot gear,
All right, they come in and they try it themselves?
They traded, but sure, we were waiting on them.
Yeah.
They didn't have a chance. We stood them up against the wire and took the buttons off them and the caps off them and made a general bulls on them. But they didn't get battered in any sense. They might have got an odd slap now, I couldn't guarantee that, like, but they didn't get bait the way that they could have got bait. But we just marched them around the wire and marched them out the gate. Probably tell them to bring a few more the next time or something like that. That's the way it worked out, like.
So what's the next move after that?
The next move after that was probably to do with the burning. Sure, there was no other option after that. What do you do after that, like? So
there's no more screws come back in bigger numbers?
No.
How does it get how does it escalate then? You know, into where you're starting to burn the cage for
Well,
you're
I
in?
suppose we didn't see any alternative. After that, where do you go from there? Like, what do you wait on? Like, you know, so.
So whenever these 15 screws are put out of the cage, and is it like right away, automatically, that an order's start burning the huts?
It didn't happen just there and then, like,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
but within an hour, like,
Within an hour.
the
This is the
place
course of action.
all started to burn for some reason.
Yeah.
So,
So cage 11 goes up first.
well, we went to cage
Or
11.
cage 13, I should say. Your cage goes up first.
We burned a lot of bins and stuff first, and then started to burn the keys then, I suppose, you know, so.
Is your cage the first one burned?
I'd say it is, it must have been aye. But then we went and asked the loyalists to leave the next two cages.
How far away are they from you?
No, they're only a stone's throw to that fence. Like. You know, you could have easily, like, there was maybe 10 yards in between each cage, you know. Like, you could easily, and many of the time people did, like, through messages from one cage to the other, you know. So.
Well, how are you moving from cage to cage? Are you using the front
sure.
gate just?
So the gate was open, like.
Where the gates are open, so you're moving around in the camp then?
We were all out, like.
So you have told the loyalists leave, and
They all went up to, I think it was case 14 now, or case 15, I'm not 100% sure, but they go up there, and we didn't touch that case now, you know, we just let them stay there.
and when you went to the loyalist cages, you left them unmolested, like.
Aye, unmolested,
Yeah,
aye.
yeah. There's no attacks on them or anything like that.
There's too many things happening at that stage
Right.
to get involved in a no confrontation, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, nothing.
You know, there's enough on the plate, like, without any more, like, so that's more or less how that happened, like. But they didn't show any willingness to fight over the keys or anything now, you know, so they volunteered to leave, like, you know.
How long is this process taken by the time it starts off burning cage 13 until the last cage is burned? And it's all burned basically. How long of a process would that have took?
Probably 4 or 5 hours, I suppose, like.
So for the sweep through the camp, like it's four or 5 hours.
You know, I couldn't tell you exactly, like, but I know,
roughly, like, you know.
but it would have been, like, it would have been probably 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning, or, you know, by the time.
And what time's it kick off at in your case? What time?
Must have been about 8 o'clock or
At night?
at night, in around that time, like.
Right.
Because they were sent in as the usual walk round, which usually was an hour before lockup. I think lockup was 8 o'clock. I could be wrong. It could have been 9 o'clock now. I can't remember. Like, but I think it was 8 o'clock. Like, you know. So that would all have happened from 7 o'clock till 8 o'clock, say for instance. So after that, there was no screws to be seen anywhere. Like, by the way, you know. And the governor was a fucking idiot too. Like, you know, he was. You know, even when Morley who was the camp OC, like, was trying to get in contact. Apparently, now I know nothing about this, like, because they're up at the eye in the camp, you know. But apparently, he was looking a confrontation or to have a yarn it was an assistant governor was there, you know. Some type out of England or somewhere. I thought he was dealing with a lot of Englishmen or something, you know, that hadn't the sense. Always he would never have done what he done. Like that, obviously, like that was a setup. That boy knew, and he had obviously told somebody that once he goes into that cage, there's going to be a confrontation.
Yeah.
So they had 12 or 15 boys sitting, waiting to come in to solve it. Which anybody would have knew, with any brains at all, that 15 against 90, like,
Doesn't work.
it wasn't going to work in any context. So it was I blame the governor for it all, because he wouldn't even talk to Morley then, you know what I mean?
All right.
Which it could have maybe quelled the situation a bit, like. I don't know if it would have solved it or not now, because there was a few bridges burned by this time, like, sort of in a literal sense, you know.
Yeah.
You know, but he had no wit, like. I don't know, can't remember his name or anything about him, like, but I know he had no sense, or he wouldn't have been in the position he was in, you know. You know, like he's. But it just went from one thing to another, you know, and once something like that starts. But Morley could have stopped it now. You know what I mean?
He's a Republican prisoners camp OC.
He was a camp OC, yeah.
Is he the guy that's appointed you in cage 13?
No. It was a vote among the prisoners.
Oh, right,
It was an election.
Okay, right.
So that's how I got voted in, like. I dare say if Morley was to give me the job, he wouldn't have given it to me, like.
All right.
That's my assumption, but the man's dead now, so I don't know. Like.
Yeah. Is there any more you want to know about that before we move to the military arriving and what happens in the aftermath when they come?
No, because I'm at CR right now. I'm trying to think though. Okay, yeah. Like, this is, I'm asking more of like a mechanical sense on this, but like, how do you burn a cage? Like, where does it start? And then like, because there's a lot of it's like I don't know how you burn metal.
Well, at this stage, there was like sort of half wooden cubicles and stuff in the cage, you know, so it was like old plyboard or something, you know, so it did burn all right, like, you know. And then there was, I don't know, there was gas bottles went up, you know, all sorts of things to burn. There was even a tuck shop that was burned. You know, there's plenty of things to burn. I know the metal, but the metal will crumble too, like with the heat, you know. So, but there was like cubicles is the best way I could explain it. Inside them cages. At the end up now, at the start there was none, but at the end up, everybody that was in there had a sort of wee cubicle. You know, there was no door or anything on it, like, but it was.
But the walls are made of like wooden partitions.
Aye,
so
or
they'll
plyboard or something like that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So that's how it started. But once it takes hold, like, sure.
How long is it then this situation's going on? Is the whole camp in flames before the military arrive? Or do the military arrive and it's still going on? Like,
No, I'd say the whole lot was born before the military arrived. Like,
how long is it until they arrive? Is it the next day?
I think it was the next day. Aye.
Right.
You know, there was it's only hearsay, like, but there was talk something like 4,000 soldiers round the perimeter of the camp and all that, like, you know. So, you know, there was TV cameras and all sorts of things. Like, sure, it was on the TV, the place burning, like, you know. Not that we seen the TV now, but we heard about it afterwards, like, you know. But it was the next day, like, before I'd say. There might have been soldiers there, like, but they wouldn't have been there in any great numbers, like, you know.
Now, so army arrives. You're not sure how many there are. You said, right? But so they arrive. What happens now?
Well, the only way we could actually stay together was there's 2 football fields, you know, just at the back of our cage, like, there was 2 football fields. So we all gathered on the football field and tried our best to stay as a company. You know, we were all together, like, so. The Brits was at one side of the wire and we were at the other, you know, and they were shooting the occasional rubber bullet or plastic bullet, but they weren't really effective in any sense, you know. They did try. We had an old ploy that we let on, we were afraid of them, you know, so they could only come through a sort of a metre gate, you know what I mean, and if you ever seen 40 or 50 soldiers trying to get through a meter gate, it doesn't really work. So we run away whenever they come in, and then we had to run back, and we had to run away again, and then they got more confident, so they all piled in, and then they couldn't get out. So we actually captured one of them. I think he was a radio man or something, you know, he had a big fella, like he was a big backpacker, and he couldn't get through the gate, so we caught him in there and brought him back onto the field. But the battalion staff was there, and their decision was not to kill him, was to let him go, you know, which was probably a good idea. I'm not saying I'm against that or anything like, but there was a lot of people wanted to do him in, you know, but it was probably a good decision not to, like. It wouldn't have solved anything for us, you know what I mean? Because we all knew what was coming next anyway. We were going to get a beating them what their head meant, but we talked about it for a long time, or they had talked about it, and it was decided to let him go anyhow, like, but so we let him go, but the killer for us was the helicopter, you know, and the CR gas, you know, that night. It was really, really dense, and it was impossible to breathe, like, if you know what I mean. I don't know if you've ever been in that situation or not, but it's not a nice place to be, like.
Yeah, no, so, like, what is CR gas first?
Well, it's some sort of a thing that affects your eyes and it affects your lungs, and you just get that you can't see, and then you can't breathe, you know. So it's really, it's hard to explain it, like, but it really renders you useless, you know. Like there's no way you could fight, or you get down on your knees to try and get a breath, and that's about the height of it, you know, and most times you can't breathe out. When they were only shooting it in, now, you know, you could have moved from one side of the field, you know, it wasn't like it was a canister here, a canister maybe 30 yards away, you know, and all 150 yards away, you know. It was easy enough to avoid, till a degree now, you know, you wouldn't have avoided it all, but you could. But when they were shooting it, or I don't know what way they were getting it out of a helicopter, maybe they were turfing it out with a square mouth shovel, I don't know. But it was so thick, you know, there was just no avoiding it, like, you know, there was nothing you could do, only.
So, like, anywhere that has, like, a mucous membrane, so your eyes, your nose, anywhere that's, like, soft and wet on your body is going to be, like...
The lungs was the worst, I would say, you know,
Yeah.
to be honest, you know.
I'm surprised it even got into your lungs. I'm surprised, like, it didn't just burn your mouth into where you're not, but then you're also...
Well, you couldn't breathe, like, so work out, you know, I presumed it was your lungs, maybe it wasn't, but I mean, I could not breathe, you know what I mean, you just... You were more or less paralyzed without being paralyzed, you know, that's sort of way it was. It was a rare feeling, like.
You said you were, like, how did they administer it exactly? Like, you were
Well, they fired it out of a gun, I presume, you know, on the ground.
Yeah.
But out of a helicopter, they were turfing it out. I don't know how they were doing it, you know, to be honest. Like. But it was so much more condensed coming out of the helicopter, like, so I don't know anything about it now, you know, to be honest.
So the helicopter could lay down a lot of CR gas.
That's what I'm saying, when they were only shooting it and throwing, or whatever they were doing with it, throwing an odd canister in, you could have avoided it till a degree, you know. But when it was coming down out, like the helicopter was only 20 foot above your head.
All right, that close.
You know what I mean? Like, it was just continuous. You know, it was just a continuous flow of gas, like, you know. Like, you had a wet towel maybe and you were trying to cover your eyes, or, you know, stuff like that, but there's none of it worked. It might have worked to a degree, I don't know, like, but it was really paralyzing, you know, the amount of gas that they put down on top of us, like.
So, did the army, when they're firing it at you, do they have masks on?
I'm not so sure now, you know.
Because now looking back,
I don't think they did, like, to be honest. Like. But I'm not sure, like, I didn't.
yeah, right. Because I wonder if they would have been firing as much if they had held on to the radio guy. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Like, they probably, from the way you made it sounds like they would have. They just would have.
Mm.
Because
Well, the helicopter's dropping it indiscriminately, isn't it? Like,
Yes, the helicopter was the
he's
one that.
throwing it like confetti.
They're the ones that beat us, like.
Mm.
We could have held the football field for a long time because they couldn't get the amount of Brits in to beat us. You know, it's only whenever we're on our knees and there was no fight left. You know that they come in and they battered us all around the place. Like I ended up unconscious and
Beaten unconscious.
down into the hospital and stitched up and.
When you're saying about this battle of the football field and the Brits coming in, are you fighting these Brits hand to hand?
More or less, like aye.
More or less? Because I'm
Aye.
wondering what you could throw at them. Like,
Aye,
I mean,
well,
where would you get the stuff that...
There's nothing there. It's all quarry dust, you know.
yeah.
There's nothing really to throw at them, like.
So it's basically hand to hand stuff for a while.
Basically, aye. But they had the upper hand, like, because by this stage we were probably exhausted and you know the amount of gas and you're virtually, I'd say, semi-conscious anyhow. You know that kind of way. You know with the amount of CS gas, like it was.
What brings it? How long did it last? First of all, and what brought it to an end?
Well, they beat us into a pulp. You know what I mean? Really, like that's what.
How long? See the actual burning, was it over a 24-hour period, 2 days, 3 days?
I would say it was probably 24 hours, like, you know.
They were able to subdue all the cages within, or has everyone, all Republicans, made their way to this football pitch?
Well, there was a lot of them on the football pitch, all right. Like there was a lot of people, and after there was that much gas, you didn't know who was on. Anyhow, you know,
right.
We tried to keep our company together, you know, as best we could. So we were on the left-hand one, as you're looking at it this way, like, and those 16 or 17 there were maybe over a bit, or 20 or whatever, you know.
So there's hundreds and hundreds of men on the pitch.
There was, there was a lot of people on the pitch now. I suppose there was a lot of people shied away. I don't know if there was or not. Like,
where would you go? Where could you escape to, like, or go to?
Well, you could stay in the cage that you were in. You know what I mean? I don't know if that ever happened. I didn't ask, and I didn't really want to know either. You know, but
were all Republican cages burnt?
Well, I would say they were.
Right.
I would say they were now. Because I think at the last, you know, Morley gave the order up there. As far as I know now, he didn't give any orders to me, like, but as far as I know, he gave the order up. See, I think Morley was in 16 or somewhere, maybe 17. I'm not sure which, like, but to burn the cages then, you know. So I presume that's what happened, you know. But we never got up that length. Like we were always down,
right,
on the football field, like, you know, where the centre of the activity was, like, really, like, you know.
How about like communicating with each other and let word know from one cage to the next?
We had already sent a few people to the hospital and stuff like that, you know, people who weren't well, you know, like, and well, there was 3 or 4 elderly people, like, some like me and you now. But we put them in the hospital, you know, and because everybody knew what was going to happen, you know, and I think there was probably, like, and I'm only assuming, like, but I think probably a lot of screws was there pointing people out because the ones that was maybe agitating it or, you know, stuff like that. So I'm assuming that, like, but I think they had dogs and all with them, so I think that's what they were at, you know.
Well, how does it end, Malachy?
I was unconscious. You know what I mean? I think I was suffering from concussion. I know I had a load of scars on my head, you know, that was stitched up on one thing and all that. But I waking up, I was in the hospital, you know.
Oh, right.
You know, so I don't even know how
Don't
I
even
got
know
there.
how you got from
I
there
don't
to the
even know how I
hospital.
got there, to be honest. No,
Aye.
you know, but I think I probably got an extra dose. Well, I think there was a few people picked out, you know, that maybe they put down as troublemakers, or you know, whatever you want to call them.
When you are
Well,
knocked out and took to the hospital, I mean, when that happens to you, what age you whenever that happened to you?
I was probably about 22 or 23, I suppose.
22, 23.
Yeah. But like I don't know how long I was in the hospital. That's the thing about it. But whenever I come back out of the hospital, obviously I was through off. It must have been a military, because I can't remember walking, like, so it must have been through off at Keys 13. And whenever I come back into Keys 13, everybody was standing up against the wire, and you know, and doing all this fucking shit against the wire. And I had a word with a couple of, you know, boys that was on the staff, and I says, boys, this is, you know, I just says, this is not good enough here, you know, like they'd already paid us, you know, so, well, they agreed, you know, so I went up to whoever was in charge of the Brits, like, I don't know what rank he had, like, but I went up to him and says, look, you've already paid us, and unless you want to have to pay us again, we're not standing up against this wire anymore. So I told everybody to fucking sit down,
Right.
you know, and they just got up their gear and left. So I don't know what, I don't know whether that was a stroke of good fortune or a bit of luck, but like, I was in bits myself, and the last thing I wanted to do was have an all rat, like, but like, you reckon from head to toe, you know.
And what does the cage look like when you return? What's
Well,
devastated?
everything was wrecked,
Yeah.
But what wrecked me even more was the fact that the Brits was walking up and down telling people to put their hands up again. You know, that fucking carry on. That devastated me more, and I says, we can't have this, like. You know, they'd already beat us. You know, I put my hands up, they'd beat us.
Yeah.
But so when you were going to get beat from the word go,
Yeah.
you know, but, you know, I just went up and says, like, we're not doing this, like, you know, so. And he must have agreed, so. But apparently, like, they had boys up again the wire and some of the cages up above for a long time, like, you know, so. I'm only going on hearsay on that too now, by the way, you know, so.
The men are collapsing with exhaustion, like, against the wire and stuff, so they are, like.
Well, that's what I'm saying, like, why did they do it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was only in the cage 10 minutes when this happened, like, you know, I just.
So you couldn't have been in the hospital too long then if you're back to the cage and it's like that. Are you back the next day or something in the cage?
Oh, no, I wasn't away. No, it was only hours I was in the hospital. As I say, I must have been in some sort of a semi-conscious, you know, concussed or, I don't know what, really, like, but I know I had a load of stitches in my head and the back of my head, and, you know, obviously buttons or boots or, you know, something along them lines, like, so.
And is the hospital full, I take it, then? Nobody's escaping this either?
No, there was a load of people in the hospital, but the funny thing is that I can't recall meeting one, well, this is 50 years later, but I can't recall meeting one close friend in it, if you know what I mean, but maybe we were segregated. I can't really tell you, you know, I don't know. But I know there was a lot of people ended up in hospitals. A lot of boys there was a couple of boys that lost their eyes and, you know, rubber bullets and broken legs and, you know, there was all sorts of, you see every injury that you can mention, somebody had it. But just the funny thing is I can't recall meeting anyone that I knew powerful well, you know, that kind of way. But maybe they had me just in a, you know, in a cubicle. Maybe, I don't know. Can't remember really. Like. And as I say, I was probably semi-conscious at the time anyhow, you know. So.
Well, what's the aftermath like? I mean, you're back to the cage, the military's left. and you're exposed to the elements, the weather, etc. There's no shelter. But how do you deal with that like that?
Well,
Because that there's October, so that's the onset of winter. Like winter's coming, like you know.
the first thing I done was call a parade, and we marched around what was left of the cage, and everybody's morale was really, really high. Like apart from their injuries now,
But they're in good heart.
they're in good spirit now, and that's the reason they called the parade. You know,
Very good. Yeah.
you know, to build up their spirits. Like you
Yeah.
know. Everybody knew what was going to happen anyhow. You know what I mean? Everybody accepted the fact. Well,
Do you think Long Kesh was gonna be burned come what May?
I do. I think it was.
It was
It was
something
simmering underneath, and it should have been done a long time before. In my opinion, like you know, that's my personal opinion, by the way. But I think everybody was happy that it was in the state it was in, even though it had nothing to eat, and nothing to drink, and nowhere to sleep, and all them things. But everybody, in my opinion, now was prepared to put up with all that just to see the place going up in flames. You know, that's my personal opinion. Like
Very good.
you know, and the camaraderie like was second to none. I think like. You know, between even different gauges, and you know,
Yeah.
morale was very high. Like
You do find that in Republican prisoners when things are difficult.
well, the only way is up, because it can't get any worse. You know,
Yeah.
like the only way is up after that. You know, that was my opinion. Anyway.
What about you, Jimmy? Anything else?
You mean you're talked to death if you don't mind the
Yeah,
censor?
we planned to milk you like so we did when we got out.
Yeah, for about an hour.
If you wanna wrap it up, that's okay. You've got a good interview there, like.
All right.